For this next activity, we're going to do an active listening activity for a passage from a pioneer story called Building the New House. As I read, I would like you to set up your page so that you have a frame where you can sketch some pictures of what I'm telling you in the story. And then afterwards, you're going to write down the story. First, I'm going to read the story, and you're going to write down what you hear me describing. So I'll stop and give you some pointers as we go. This is another form of active reading or active writing. This was highlighting, pointing out keywords, and now we're doing doodling. So, building the new house. I'm going to show you some of my sketches as we go. Here we go. It's quite a long story, so just we'll stop often and I'll give you some of the sketches that I've done, okay? Watch out! Willie jumped aside. A mallet whizzed past his ear and thudded to the ground right where he'd been standing. So we have Willie and we have a mallet. And a mallet is a wooden hammer. And you would want to use a mallet instead of a metal hammer if you were hammering on wood. Kind of what's held together by pieces of metal. But if you were hammering wood, you would want to use a wood mallet instead. So I'll draw like a little wooden peg. Okay, so the mallet whizzed past his ear. The man he'd been watching all morning swung down from the crossbeam of the frame he'd been anchoring to a post. So that's a little bit confusing. It says he's been anchoring a crossbeam of a frame to a post. Okay, well here's a post. And he'd been anchoring it. Anchoring means putting something in. So he's using this peg with his mallet. And here's a crossbeam. So when you build a house, you have these posts, of course, and you have a crossbeam. And keep in mind the man's way up here. It's really tall. There you go. So he's anchoring this into here. You'd better skedaddle out of here, son, he said to Willie as he scooped up the mallet, or you're gonna get hurt. His second near disaster, and if Pa caught him idling about, Willie retreated down the hill. Oh well, just watching was exciting. He hunkered down against the side of the barn, eyes searching for the man with a red neckerchief, the one who ran the crossbeams like a squirrel on a branch. So I'm going to draw a picture of a neckerchief. If this is your neck, here's your head. A neckerchief is the piece tied around it. And sometimes if you're in Boy Scouts or Brownies, you would wear this neckerchief as well. So he's got this red neckerchief, this man. He comes up again and again. Neighbors who'd gathered to help with the house raising swarmed all over the building site. Mr. Simpson, an experienced house builder, was bossing the construction. So we might draw the boss. I'm going to draw him from behind. Get a little straw hat on. And I'm going to have him sort of using his hands to direct people. Do you remember his name? Here he is. Bossy Mr. Simpson. So I might write Mr. Simpson. From early morning, he'd had men laying the floor timbers across the stone foundations. So we have floor timbers for the house across a stone foundation. When you go to build your log cabin, you might want to have a stone foundation and then these timbers. Now they were putting up the walls. Pa had worked all summer preparing the framework for the walls. He'd also made pikes, long poles tipped with metal spikes. So pikes, long poles tipped with metal spikes. We're going to find out. So these are wood and those are metal, and we'll find out what those are for. So the men could dig them into the frame and lift it. So they would basically use this, poke it into the frame of the house, and so it wouldn't slip as they're lifting it. And that's a pike. We can label that. Pike, we can label all these. Mallet, crossbeam. We've got Mr. Simpson, the red neckerchief. And the pike. Oh, we have the wood, the floor of the house, and the foundation. Now that one side was anchored, Willie didn't want to miss the rest. So I'm not going to draw the whole story, but I will read the story. And as I read, you can just be doodling all the things that you see. Instead, I'm going to leave this here so you can see some of the doodles I did before. Willie, where are you? You're supposed to help. Sarah was emptying a pail of scrubbed potatoes into a huge kettle that hung from a tripod of logs. Turning over the fire, four great roasts of pork sizzled on the spit. Turning the spit was supposed to be one of Willie's chores, but he wouldn't be able to see the action from there. And anyway, turning that spit was hot, heavy work. Willie edged farther into the shadow of the barn and ignored Sarah's complaints. Up on the hill, a dozen or so men surrounded a frame lying flat on the ground. "Heft and up!" roared Mr. Simpson, and each one stooped, hooked a hand around the frame and hefted. Then they ran it over the stone foundation where more boys were waiting with pikes. "Right now, all together, boys," Mr. Simpson's powerful voice sang out. "Yo heave, lift! Yo heave, lift!" On the command, the whole gang pushed together, and the heavy frame rose to a vertical position. And there he was again, the man in the red neckerchief, running across, shinning up the post to guide home the crossbeams that joined with the new frame with its neighbor. Willie Robertson, you get down here and help." This time it was Ma. Better not ignore that. Reluctantly, Willie turned his back on the engrossing scene. A grim-faced Meg was turning the spit. "You get over here and do this," she said, and when Willie was close enough. "I need to help George." George had set up 6 kegs as table legs and now was struggling to put a plank across it. Meg grabbed an end, and together they laid the plank across the kegs to make a trestle table. As they started on the second table, Willie absent-mindedly leaned into the spit handle. Push over the top, down and around. Push over the top. Even this far away, the thunk, thunk, thunk reverberated through him from the house. If only he'd been able to run across the crossbeams, driving home trunnels with a mallet. Here's a trunnel, it's a wooden peg. Right up here with the men wearing the red neckerchief. If only he could walk across the crossbeams with no more care than you would walk on a log. Sweat dripped onto Willie's eyes, and he dropped the spit handle to wipe it with his shirt tail. The sizzle and spit of the meat juices dropped into the fire and gave an aroma that made his stomach grumble. No point thinking about food. It would be a long time before the family could eat. The cabin door banged open, and Ma came out carrying 2 big jugs of maple syrup. "Sarah will do that for a bit," she said. "You help George and bring up those stump stools. The men will want to eat shortly." I have a stump up here. "Yes, Ma, anything to get away from the spit." Willie had just plunked a 6 stool down by the table when a hand caught him on the back of the shirt and spun him around. The man with the red neckerchief. Hey there, young fella, there's a job that needs doing. The man mopped his brow with the back of his hand. Need a man to cut and fetch an evergreen tree. Just a little one, say 4 feet tall. Oh, a chance to help. Willie straightened up. A tree? What for? The man gulped thirstily from a dripper of water, then wiped his mouth on the back of his hand. Rafters are going to be going up soon. Gonna need a roof tree. He laughed at Willie's puzzled expression. You never heard of that? It's for luck. Oh, never mind. I'll find someone. No, Willie said. I can do it. Good man. You have to be back in, let's say, a quarter of an hour. And that'll be just dandy. Pa's hatchet. I need Pa's hatchet, Willie thought, and he hurried off to the woodpile. 15 minutes later, Willie was dragging his prize across the farmyard. The men had been busy, the walls were up, and now the teams were racing each other to see who could get the rafters done most quickly. Here, lad, come on up. Give us that there tree. Good luck to this house. And they hefted up the flagpole like a sentinel. Everyone cheered, throwing their hats in the air. Well done, lads. As Willie hurried between the tables of pots with dandelion root coffee and platters of sliced pork, people were ruffling his hair and clapping him on the shoulder. Well done, lad. You found us a good tree. Everyone was bursting with happiness. Well, the roof still needs shingling, but he could help Pa cut those shingles. Then they'd also need to put in the sawdust for insulation between the walls and finish the rafters. Then they'd have a new house. Once you've finished drawing all your pictures, I'm going to write some of the words from the story right here, just the key ideas, and you can copy that down as well.